guys, today I want to tell you about 3 crazy goalie stories from the goalie school over the years. These are insane. I probably have 100 of them, but let's start with a kid from New Jersey. We had a puck machine, could shoot 100 miles an hour. It could launch pucks forever. And if you watched our YouTube video where we shot him out on the lake here, we were trying to catch pucks on a Sea-Doo. Insanity. But this gets better. We're in New Jersey. I have Jason Van Spronson running the puck machine. He shoots it. It's maybe set at 50 miles an hour, hits a kid right in the arm. If it doesn't shatter his arm, like just flopping around in the breeze, kids screaming, it's the end of the world. We're like, how could this possibly happen? I'm like, Jason, how fast did you have that thing shooting? Well, it was set at 50, it was lobbing in, it wasn't super hard for the age of the kid. It was shot specific velocity-wise, so it was fine. Dad's all crazy, you know how things are, we're gonna sue, you're gonna do this and that, this is the worst hockey school ever. But we looked at his equipment. The cheater plate that flopped on there was gone. He took a shot from the puck machine right on the bare arm, snapping his arm. We pulled the dad aside and said, what's going on here? He's like, oh yeah, they were brand new arm pads. We took the cheater floater plate off because he couldn't move. The poor kid got hit right on the bare arm with a 50-mile-an-hour shot, and of course, he broke his arm. All right, it seems like a lot of my stories are with American kids. This one's no different. We had a kid at our camp. We were working on doing bicep curls with those rubber bands. You'd put them underneath your feet. You do your bicep curls, you do delt stuff. And we always stressed, make sure you get that rubber band right underneath your feet solid. Well, this kid from Michigan, I don't want to mention him by name, Spencer, reefing hard, reefing hard, reefing hard. Well, if that rubber doesn't come out from underneath his feet, and he double punches himself right above the eyes. There was 2 perfectly symmetrical cuts, one over this eye, one over that eye. And poor Spencer knocked himself out. He had a 4-inch gash on this eye, 4-inch gash on this eye. We called his parents. We said, hate to inform you, we're bringing your kid to the hospital. He's got to get some stitches. What could possibly happen where he's got stitches on both eyes? And I explained it. He knocked himself out. And they're like, he knocked himself out? Right. Spencer was that type of kid. Later that weekend, he went on to do some welding at home and burned both his retinas. Every camp's got a story of that kid that's gonna find a way to hurt themselves, and Spencer was no different. All right, first 2 stories are Americans. I gotta pick on a Canadian kid. I don't like mentioning these kids by name, but his name's Joel. And we're doing this at the Sarnia Arena, the old sports and entertainment center where the Sting play. And in the lobby, we'd set up % body fat testing. And with that, we'd use the skin fold calipers. You know, they don't hurt. You just measure the belly, the leg, the back. We find out what your % body fat is, and it gives you a good idea whether you're in shape or whether you're not in shape. Nothing too harmless with that, nothing too dangerous. So anyways, Joel comes up to the table, and I say, Joel, you probably won't even feel these little needles. They're on this skin fold caliper. He's like, needles? Immediately, eyes roll back in his head, falls back on the ground, knocked himself right out. Again, another kid at Future Pro Goalie School hurting themselves, no fault of ours. I learned my stupid corny joke sometimes kid take to heart. There's no needles in skin fold calipers. It was just one of those things where the kid believed the old goat. And if I got anything for you to use as a piece of advice, don't listen to the goat. He's full of it. It's been said that the greatest predictor of future performance is past performance. So what does that mean? If you had a great season, you're likely going to have another great season following that up. If you had a terrible season, same thing applies. A lot of times goalies go into a current season hoping things are different. You had a bad season, you want things to be better, hoping isn't going to change it. So I ask you this question, what is your delta? Delta meaning change. What have you done to actively change your circumstances from last year to this year? Now is sort of the find out phase of your journey, because this is the fall, and as you're coming up through minor hockey, you're finding out what team you're on or what team you're not on. And invariably, kids aren't happy with where they're playing. Some kids are, but most kids aren't. By definition, as you go up through hockey, more kids don't make it than do make it. So you're gonna have a disproportionate amount of kids that don't make it, that are unhappy. And a lot of times they'll go through outside factors and say it's because of politics, it's because of nepotism. I was just as good as the kid they kept. We've had lots of discussions, lots of videos about that topic of nepotism and politics. But the biggest difference for me is the past performance likely predicts your future success. And as a scout, that's what we look for. Perfect example is a kid named Jeff Lurg. He won a national championship for Michigan State. Before that, he won a state championship with Honeybake. He was awesome in the pros, playing for Toledo. So your current performance likely is going to bode well for your future success. So let's do this. Let's get introspective. Let's look at where you're at actually. Have you done anything this past summer to change the outcome this summer? Now, just because you worked your butt off and you did a whole bunch of stuff doesn't guarantee that this season's going to be a great success for you and you're going to get on the team you want, but it's going to give it a chance to happen. So as the season goes on, if you want to be on a different team next year at a higher level, start it right now. Start addressing your delta. What are you going to do differently this year so that next year you're in a position where you're telling everybody and posting on Instagram how you made the team you wanted. So remember this, what you're doing this year is likely going to predict what happens for you next year.